Primary home versus an investment property. Which one do I choose? So you might be sitting there, you are a first-time buyer, or you're going to be a first-time buyer. You're thinking about buying your first property, but you're confused. Are you buying this property to live in, or are you going to buy this property to rent it out as an investment? So it can be a tough decision. Now, I always say that buying a primary home, meaning that you're buying this property to live in, I call it an emotional buy. So the final decision, most of the time, it's driven by emotions. From the moment you start searching to the moment you sign that offer to purchase, it is purely based on emotions most of the time. But why is that the case? Because you're going to live in this property probably for the rest of your life, right? So it has to be comfortable. You have to love it. You have to love the area. You have to love the color. You have to love the windows. You have to love almost everything about this property because you're going to live there every day, well, hopefully every day. So it has to be comfortable. You have to love it. Whereas on the other hand, when you are buying an investment property, I normally say remove, cut emotions there, right? It has to be purely from an investment perspective. It has to be from a business point of view, right? Will I get tenants in this area? Will it appreciate in value? So it most of the time you are making that decision based on the outcomes of what this property is going to produce, or is it going to meet your investment goals at the end of the day? So that is very, very important because I see a lot of the times what people do, they say, I want to buy this property, I want to live in it for a year and then rent it out afterwards. And I say that is difficult, right? That is difficult because what will take preference in that decision making? Will it be the investment side, or will it be your needs as a property owner, as a person that wants to live in that property? So which one will come first? So you see how difficult that is. So I normally say decide from get-go to say, I want to buy this property for investment, or I want to buy for a primary use. But again, how do you distinguish between the two? How do you get to this decision, which is really, really, really difficult? What I say is that, the objective is also very important. The goals that you have are very important as well. Do you want to be a property investor, or you don't want to be a property investor, right? So you need to distinguish between the two. So if you don't want to be a property investor, you don't see yourself having multiple properties, you don't want the headache of tenants and everything else, then it's fine. Then rather stick to buying a primary home and be comfortable in that home. But if now you have this edge, this hunger for being a property investor, I normally say that from onset, it's much better to start from there because then you scale much quicker from that perspective. But if now you mixing the two things, it can be very problematic, especially as a first-time buyer. Of course, there are people right now, I have a property that I bought for my primary use, and maybe at the time I didn't know any better. But now I want to start to invest in property. Then of course that will make sense. Then you can look at in terms of how you're going to buy the property. Are you buying cash? Are you using the banks? If there's the banks, then you work on your affordability and all that. But as you're starting out right now, to that person that you don't have a property at all, and you're just caught in between to say, do I buy to live in, or do I buy as an investment property? I would go back to that point to say, what is my objective? What is it that I want to do and achieve, right? So if the idea is that I want to do this property investment thing, I want to be a property investor, then go right ahead and start from an investment base, because then you're gonna scale much quicker from that point on. But if now the idea is that, look, I just want to have a beautiful home for my family or beautiful home for myself, and this whole property thing, it's not for me, rather than stick to your primary home, so that when you buy from that perspective, buy from a point that you are buying a place that you're going to love, and in an area that you love as well. But I would also like to just maybe put a spanner in the works there to say that, these days, even though you're buying for a primary home or for a primary use, so to speak, but please make sure that it also has that element of investment in it, because that's also very important, because you might change your mind in the future, but still then you also want to know that you are buying something that if something happens, maybe you relocate, you can find tenants if you're going to rent it out, or you can even sell it. So you want to buy these properties in areas that are good, that are appreciating in value, and that really are viable in the long run. So you don't just want to buy just because you like the area, and then you just buy, but also look at the economical side of it. Is this area growing? Is this area, good for tenants? Because things change all the time. You get married, and then your person moves abroad, or they move to another province, you tag along. You want to make sure that if you don't sell this property, I can rent it out, or if I want to sell, I can definitely make a profit out of it. So all of those things are very important to note when you are making that decision to say, what am I buying this property for? Is it primary use, or am I buying this property from an investment perspective? So please make sure that you really interrogate that question, ask that question to yourself, and make sure that the answer that you get will then distinguish between the two, whether it's to stick to the primary home or go for the investment property. So that is absolutely key. Now, I hope this definitely assists you to really then make up your mind to say, where am I going to go to? Do I buy primary, or do I buy an investment property?